Good evening, baseball fans, and welcome to Diamond Kings, the YouTube sports talk show that is all about baseball. We're brought to you by the sports-kings.com media network. My name is David Whitlock from Houston, Texas, as always. There's been a lot of injuries we're going to talk about. We've had Cabrera go down. We've had Giancarlo Stanton go down. A number of pitchers are also hurt. So we're going to talk a little bit about that today. We're going to look into some of the umpires striking back here. There's been a lot of what seems like aggressive umpires that are throwing guys out for looking at them cross-eyed after a strike three. Is that the right approach or not? And then finally, we're right at the halfway point of the season. I know the All-Star break isn't for about 10 days, but we're right at the 81-game mark. So what's happened so far? What do we think is going to happen going forward? Joining me today are co-hosts. First from Arkport, New York, is Kelvin LaPierre. How are you doing, Kelvin?
Good. Watching some soccer.
That is correct. We are broadcasting live during the the World Cup women's final. The United States is off to a very, very hot start, so we're excited about that. And joining us out from the West Coast and Indio, California, is Julian Beck. How are you, Julian?
I'm doing pretty well. Just had some of my girlfriend's family members coming over, kind of going over from yesterday's 4th of July into today.
Yeah, it's been a busy weekend. I appreciate you guys taking time out to join us and talk some baseball. And 4th of July is always all about baseball. There's games. I think they started at like 11 o'clock Eastern all the way through midnight, past midnight in Central Time. So it's a good time to talk baseball. So we'll get right into it. So the first subject to talk about is all these injuries to key players. In particular, it was very, very shocking when Miguel Cabrera went down. It was going to be, I believe, about 6 weeks. I believe this is his first trip to the disabled list, which is a surprise. He's had so many nagging injuries he can play with. They're going to have to shut him down for a few weeks. The Tigers are right at 500. We've also had Giancarlo Stanton a couple weeks ago go down. The Marlins are already out of it, so that just kind of kills his MVP drive and home run title drive. Who knows how that might shake up the trade market. We've had here in Houston, George Springer get hurt. He's been the kind of the catalyst for the offense. Has been carrying us for the first 2 months. So I'll go to each of you and kind of react to these injuries. Any other injuries you want to talk about? I know injuries are part of the game. Every team has them. I mean, Jacoby Ellsbury for the Yankees has been down. Dustin Pedroia for the Red Sox has been down. So we'll start with Kelvin. What do you make of these injuries, in particular the Cabrera injury? Is this it for the Tigers? And maybe the Springer injury and the Astros? Anything else you could think of?
Well, it's huge for the Tigers because you trade a right fielder, and now your backup for if anything ever did happen to Cabrera is now gone. Fielder's gone. He's out. He's playing elsewhere. You have Cabrera now heading to the DL, which is his first time, which is surprising considering how long he's been in the league. 6 weeks playing at 500. The way that division's shaken out, this could be it if they don't play better than 500 baseball with him on the DL. They got to play above 500 with him on the DL to stay in it. If they play 500, I don't think they're in it when he comes back. And they're gonna fight. They're gonna have to claw their way in August, the end of August into September, to have any shot whatsoever. Is it impossible? No, but for them, it's gonna be a long shot just the way that division's playing out. Giancarlo Stanton's just a freaky injury. It's kind of what happened to Teixeira back in the World Classic. He swung a bat, popped a wrist, and Teixeira's taken 2 years to come back to form from that injury. Is that the same for a younger Giancarlo Stanton? I don't think so. Carlos Stanton seems to have more physical power than Teixeira. I mean, Teixeira's a pretty strong guy, but Carlos looks a little bit stronger. I haven't seen Carlos in person. I've seen Teixeira, but on TV, Carlos looks a heck of a lot stronger. Washington should be used to seeing Stephen Strasburg on the DL at some point. Seems like every year he's on the DL with some injury. He was on the DL earlier this year. So that's why they went out and got a Max Scherzer. Look at Max Scherzer. He's just going to step in, fill the void. That division is weak anyway. The surprising Mets have fallen off. They're, I believe, below 500 now. So there's nothing really to be too worried about if you're a Washington fan. Get Strasburg healthy for the playoffs, which he hasn't played in yet because you guys shut him down the last time he made it to the postseason. So You're better off having him shut down now and than letting him go out there and keep throwing with a strained forearm. Just get it fixed. He'll be back. He'll be fine. Ellsbury's on his way back for the Yankees, so that's something to look forward to. I believe he's projected to be back Tuesday, back in New York. So that's nothing major. But it's just a freaky thing. It happens with every team. You're going to have that when you have a 162-game season. Halfway point, your bodies are starting to get tired. Jet lag's starting to kick in. You're not stretching out as much because you're like, oh, it's just another day. I'll be okay. That's probably what happened to Cabrera. Didn't stretch out full and popped it.
Yeah, no, you're right. Certainly just the wear and tear of the season, but you're right about the freak injuries, breaking a hamate bone for Giancarlo Stanton and just swinging for Springer. It was an inside pitch that got his wrist, but it was barely a half a foot off the plate. He was leaning in, and it bit him on the inside. You get all these leg injuries, like you said. It starts to get warmer. The players, they feel looser. They're maybe more prone to it. So, Julian, what do you make of the injury situation? What do you think about the Tigers in particular, maybe the Astros, and any other injury effects that it's had?
Well, for the Tigers, I mean, it's a huge blow for them. This is a big step for the Royals to take a big lead for them, for the Twins to come back up and jump into that wild card spot if they can. It's time for them to show them that they are for real. I know the Twins did lose Byron Buxton.
Right.
They're playing fine without him right now in center. I know they called up Miguel Sano, I think is how you say it.
Yeah.
So they're trying to get some production out of them. For the Astros, Springer injury is big, but they have Kobe Rasmus, Jake Marisnick today, who can play some defense. Tucker, they can fill the void rather easily than the Tigers. Giancarlo Stanton, that team's just done. Marcell Ozuna's been nowhere this season, so there's no power right there. Christian Yelich been struggling. They're pretty much done. The other injuries, like Strasburg, Scherzer's in there for a reason. They signed him. Gio Gonzalez is turning it back around. But I think that Miguel Cabrera one, they should have. Victor Martinez either going to stay at DH or he's going to go to first, and they got to find someone else. But it's going to be tough for them to come back.
Yeah, a couple points on that is this is a flex point for the Tigers. If you look at if they really start to tank, they could really become sellers. You've got players like David Price that is in the final year of a contract that they could try to move. You got Yoenis Cespedes who's in the final year of a contract. Now I think with the wild card, I think if they even play 500 ball for the next month and a half, you can go on a run. 10 games over 500 could win you a wild card. It is going to be tough with the Royals in that division and the best record in the American League percentage-wise. So they'll be a team to watch, whether they get some more production out of J.D. Martinez, who's been hot, and whether he gets a little bit more power out of Kinsler at second base. Iglesias can keep hitting. Who knows? We'll see. An interesting point about Springer for the Astros. Of course, I'm familiar with his play being down here, but he's leading the team in on-base percentage. That's even better than Altuve because he draws a lot more walks. He also has the power that Altuve doesn't have, and he's led the team in runs so far. Now, he's been batting number one in the lineup for the better part of a month here, but he's really been setting the table, drawing the walks, getting on base for Altuve, Correa, Gaddis, Rasmus, those guys. It's really going to be missed. We'll see what they do with that lineup. If they can put a Marisnick up there to try to be that catalyst, the guy that has some speed at the top that can then move around the bases for Altuve, and Carlos Correa, who's really been stepping up kind of with Springer being down. It's been the Correa show down here. So good points on all that. We'll move on. So the next subject we want to talk about is a little bit of the cat and mouse game, or the bickering between umpires and players and managers. It's a natural part of the game. You've got umpires out there that are going to miss some calls. I mean, every home plate umpire gets 250, 300 pitches a game. He's going to be right 98% of the time, but that 2% he's wrong can really change a game. You can get a strikeout call that should have been a walk. You can get a walk that should have been a strikeout. And so everything seems magnified with the instant replay that we see. We've got that little K-zone thing. It's live showing if it hit the corner or not. And believe me, the dugouts are seeing that too. And so umpires seem a little testy these days. So we'll start with our umpire himself of Little League variety, Kelvin, and I know we talked on Facebook a little bit of your thoughts on, particularly Mike. I think it was Mike Napoli that dropped the bat and got ejected just for not picking up his bat. It seemed excessive, but there was some jawing going on. So from an umpire's perspective, and just as a fan, are umpires too aggressive? Are players trying to push the boundaries too much? Is this just kind of one of those ebb and flow things? I know the umpires got to stand up for themselves, but we don't want to see star players be ejected from games quickly because we pay to see the players, not the umpires. So what do you think about all this?
Well, you pay to see the players, right?
That's
okay.
Right.
The players know that. So with their gestures to the umpire, every pitch, every at-bat, when it's a close call that doesn't go their way, the umpires remember this. We all remember what happens from a team before. They've all seen these guys year after year, year after year. They all do the same thing. If it's a close call that doesn't go their way, drop their shoulders, shake their head, turn around, say, that wasn't a strike, it wasn't close, I don't know what you're seeing. Brett Gardner does it all the time in New York. I'm surprised he hasn't been tossed more than he has. He does it all the time. He shrugs it. And then going back to that Mike Napoli play, Mike Napoli can say all he wanted that he's pointing to his bat boy coming to get the bat, but before that, he drops his shoulders, drops the bat, looks at the umpire for a split second before stepping out of the box. And then he turns around, says something, so the umpire says, okay, come get your bat then if you want to talk back. Come get your bat and talk to me like a man probably. And then when he said, no, my bat boy will come get it, probably when he tossed him. I'm sorry. You want to say something, say it to my face. Don't say it when you're walking away. I'm an umpire. I'd rather hear it to my face than walking away. I deal with coaches all the time that are like this. I'm not going to toss somebody, but if I had to, I would. There's only one umpiring thing that I'm really concerned about, and that was the one. Did you guys see it with John Lester? The one day the umpire charged John Lester, and John Lester didn't say a thing. It was obviously ball 4. John Lester knew it. It was inside. There's nothing for John Lester to be mad about. But he grabs the ball and he does like this when he catches the ball, like trying to tell himself that – I think he was trying to tell himself, look, I need to get the ball over. And the umpire didn't like that and started like walking out to yell at John Lester. And Lester turns around and is like, whoa, where'd you come from? And he's just sitting there yelling. And then there's no explanation for it. Lester's like, I have no idea. I didn't say anything. Right. The catcher said he didn't say anything. The umpire just went out there. It's the only one this year that I've had a problem with. Like, yeah, you're going to get players that get hot-headed, but it's when players don't like the call, they tend to try and show up the umpire like, oh, that's a horrible call. Umpires get reviewed and rated after every game. It's not a series. They get reviewed every game, and it's not just the home plate umpire. It's home first, second, third, and the extra official that they have on site. He even gets rated for the game because he's there helping out with calls when they go back to New York with that stuff. So he gets rated. So these guys are there for a reason. They know what they're doing. Their balls and strikes, if it's that bad. Like there was a week where umpires had a horrible strike zone for New York all week, and both teams were complaining about it when they were playing. It was just horrible. And it was back-to-back games in New York, and it was just horrible. I mean, both managers ended up getting ejected back-to-back days. One day it was Joe Torre. The next day I believe it was the Washington when Harper got ejected. It was that series. You're going to have that. You have 162 games. They're doing 162-plus games a year as an official. It's going to happen. You're going to have off days. You're going to have off weeks as an umpire because I hate to say it, just like baseball players, your confidence gets rattled as soon as you see you're missing calls and you're blowing calls. Your confidence is like, okay, how do I fix this? And the only way to fix it is to get through it and start getting the calls right again. And when you have a few calls a game that start going the wrong way, your head starts turning and thinking on bang plays. Okay, he's safe, he's out. If your strike zone is starting to be widened up and it's not how it should be, that pitch that's outside, the next 2 times you're on the plate, if it's a little bit wider, it's going to be there. And the players aren't going to like that because they know where the strike zone should be, over the plate. But umpires tend to give a little bit off the plate. And you guys know this. That little black strip is called very, very harsh with the ball. Even if it's a seam that touches that black, it's called a strike. So you got to take it easy on umpires. I get that the fans go to see players, but players have to understand, look, the umpire's got a short fuse. Okay, the umpires have had short fuses. Don't do what you're doing.
Yeah.
Just to play it safe.
I agree. I think what you're looking at is when the player shows up the umpire. There's a way to do it where you kind of you express your dissent without turning, shouting, yelling, being with that body language you talked about, dropping the shoulders, dropping the back to show them up. I'll give the umpire a ball's width on either side of the plate on that little K zone thing. If it's within a ball of that K zone and it's outside and they call it a strike, hey, that's pretty close. Same with the inside one, they don't miss as much. They usually tend to expand the zone. So you hate to see like a strike thing, your pitcher makes that pitch, it's totally in the strike zone and the umpire doesn't call it. And that's when you start to see that. And like you said, with the charging of the mound or the umpire aggressively taking after a pitcher, that's where they really need to take that passive look. I'm blue, I'm calm, I'm in control here. You're not going to get me spun up. If you express dissent, I'll give you the cold stare, and if you say something to me, then we're going to have a conversation about it. Julian, what do you think about this? How do you feel about when you see an umpire miss a call? Sometimes they're aggressive, sometimes the players are showing them up. Do you think it's right, or what do you think about it?
Well, I grew up playing baseball all my life, and there's unwritten rules in baseball, as we all know. One is never show up an umpire. They always remember that, and if they do, there's makeup calls. If they miss a call, they'll make it up. I mean, it's hard to see it, but it happens. Just never show up an umpire. They always see what you do. If you have something to say, then you tell them. Like, be like Derek Jeter, say it discreetly and walk away. He's never got tossed out of his whole career when he played. I like it. I like the human being back there and doing it. Not like I don't want no computer being back there because no one's perfect. That's what I like about it the most. No one's perfect. If you miss a call, you miss a call. You play with it. I just like the way it is. I mean, if a player can attack an umpire, why can't an umpire say something back? I know it's kind of weird that way, but sometimes if you say the truth.
No, did he freeze up?
And am I good?
Yeah, I can hear you again. Keep going.
And I know some managers like to get in their faces on purpose to get their team going. I know Terry Francona did it last week. I think he did it 2 games in a row, or he did it like the 9th inning. And it got the team going now. I mean, look what they're doing. They're on a good winning streak. So I don't mind what's going on with the umpires. I hope it stays. I hope they never bring a computer in because I've heard some debate about that. But just respect your umpires.
Yeah, dude, I think it's a human part of the game, and it's like with all this technology, we become spoiled, and we see it in football where we're looking at, is the foot inbounds or out of bounds? Did the toe touch the white with the toe up? Now we're getting into some of these base calls where you're looking at a close play at first base, and it's like, okay, the ball is inside the cusp of the glove, but did it touch the back one as that spike was hitting? And they end up, they do this replay, and like you said, Julian, you make a great point. I'd hate to see one of my friends is surmise that eventually we'll just end up with an umpire in a booth with an electronic system, and all the balls and strikes, there'll be a red button and a green button. Green button for strike, red button for ball, and every play on the base paths, and you lose that human element. There's been a lot of replays, and the Astros game today, there were 3 overturns. A lot of the Astros, the first 2, they called it against the Astros, and they challenged, and they got it reversed, and we're like, what's going on? These umpires, they like the Red Sox too much. I don't know, but like you said, I think it evens out after a while. I think umpires do remember. I think that they make an honest effort. There's not an umpire out there that's not doing his best job, but if they're going to miss some calls, I agree with you that the manager can kind of inspire his team, and that's all fair and good. When the manager comes out and carries on, he's asking for it. There's no question. What you don't want to see is a pitch outside on ball 2. The player turn his head, say something to the umpire, and then the umpire just throw him out mid at bat because he remembers 2 weeks ago he had a problem with this guy. Umpires got to take the high road, but they got to defend themselves too. So, good points for both of you. Great discussion. So we'll close with a segment. It's a little bit open, but now that we're halfway through the season, we've got some surprise teams that are contending for the playoffs, like the Houston Astros. Like the Minnesota Twins, which would be a wild card team at this point. A few weeks ago, even the Rangers were contending. The Tampa Bay Rays have been in first place. Then there's some surprising teams that we thought would be there that aren't. Teams like the Boston Red Sox. Teams like Chicago Cubs, although they'd probably be in the playoff mix too. So I get from each of you kind of a prediction. Maybe pick some teams you think that aren't going to do so good in the second half and fall off. Teams that you think are going to accelerate the second half and make the playoffs. Maybe some key trades that could tilt it. So we'll flip it this time and start with Julian. So what do you make of the second half? What do you predict? Give me some thoughts on the teams that are in the playoffs so far and some teams that might fall off.
Some teams I think will fall off. I got to go with the Blue Jays. I think they're going to fall off somehow. Injury. Bautista's injured a lot. Jose Reyes. Encarnacion's even known to get injured. A team that I think is going to sneak in. I still think it's going to be the Twins. I think they're going to make a run with this Miguel Cabrera injury. Look at Ervin Santana today. He strikeouts in 8 innings. He did great with his first game back. Trade deadline-wise, I hope the Astros make a move. I really like what they're doing. I hope they go for Cueto. I know Cole Hamels don't want to go there.
Right.
I'm not sure who they'll trade. I know Colin McHugh might be a popular one because you still have McCullers. I'd really like to see what they do. I'd also like to see what the Rays do. I don't know if they're gonna. I keep hearing that Evan Longoria might be traded. I think it would be a good move, to be honest with you. They can get some good draft picks or maybe even prospects in return because they know how to do stuff with their prospects. Longoria would love to be on a contender. A lot of teams out there will love him. The Mets, for example, they don't have anyone at third. I like to see what the Reds do, see if they sell now. I also like to see what the Yankees do. I know they always got the money. I hear Beltran is kind of being thrown out there to get traded now, even though he's on the DL. But those are the moves that I'm really looking forward to seeing. I'm also interested to see if the Blue Jays are actually going to go and make a move to get a pitcher like Jeff Samardzija. Curious to see where he goes. He's going to be traded again. So I really want to see where all these teams go, and I also believe Cole Hamels isn't going to get traded. I don't think anyone's going to offer him what they want, which is a boatload, and I don't blame them.
Right.
But look what David Price was worth last year, so you never know. He was worth a Drew Smiley. So Cole Hamels is worth a little more, I'm sure, to the Phillies, but really, that's what I'm all interested in.
Yeah, great points all around. Good point on the Chicago White Sox. That's a team that was really expected to be probably in the top half. I mean, that's a deep division there. When you had the Tigers and Royals repeating playoff teams, you had teams like the Indians that were one or two games out of the playoffs last year, and then the White Sox, which have been reloading, and then here's the Twins, like we've been talking about, are in the playoff picture now. Interesting thing about Cole Hamels is that big contract. It's one of those things like if he hit the free agent market today, would anybody be willing to pay him that money? If the answer is no, then they pretty much can't give him away because with the full salary, they have to give him away, pay some of the salary to get prospects back, or pay even more of the salary to get more prospects back. And the Phillies are sunk. The front office, of course, Sandberg resigned. The front office is in turmoil. I don't even know who's calling the shots there anymore, if it's McPhail or Amaro. But so the Yankees were also invoked, and we know Kelvin's a Yankees fan. The Yankees are obviously in the playoff hunt. They're going to be in it for the long term. They've got too many veterans, and they're getting some pitching back now. What do you think about the Yankees' moves, and who do you think wins the AL East? And any other thoughts on playoff teams up or down?
I think the AL East is going to come down to two teams, the Yankees and Baltimore. I do agree with Julian. I think the Toronto Blue Jays are going to fall off. Tampa, I think they are going to end up, because of all the contracts they have with their big key name players that are going to demand big money coming up. I think they're going to trade. Evan Longoria is having an off year for him. He's only at like 8 or 9 home runs. He's not hitting the ball particularly deep. He's hitting for percentage, but he's not hitting for power, which is un-Evan Longoria-like. If he does get traded, that opens up third base there. That takes away that spot in the lineup where you know it's a home run production. I mean, it's not this year, but normally it is. The Yankees, I think, are going to make a run at Samardzija and Hamels, trying to acquire one, if not both of them. Samardzija is a big talk right now for the Yankees. Is it going to happen? I think you're more likely to see a Samardzija than a Cole Hamels in a deal right now. But other than that, a big surprise team is Minnesota. Minnesota's a big surprise. Kansas City's a big surprise. Kansas City, just because of what everybody expected. Everybody thought that Kansas City was just going to be a tanking team again, and there was no way that we would that they would they would be competing with the Tigers in that division. Everybody thought the Tigers were going to pull out. Minnesota in that division is strong. Chicago is weak after their start last year, especially Abreu. He hasn't done much at all. So it's kind of like, okay, Abreu, what happened? What happened to Robin Ventura's White Sox and stuff like that? And then you have out west, you have the Angels. Angels are like at 500. They're not much better. And then you have Houston. Houston's the shock of it all. But I figured this would happen because this is exactly what Ryan Nolan did when he was in Texas. He turned the Texas ball club around, and he made them a playoff contending team within a few years. And now you're seeing that down in Houston. So I'm not surprised there, but it is pretty surprising that that's how fast of a turnaround they've had. But everybody saw this coming with Houston. Chicago Cubs are another surprise team. They're playing much better than they have in years past. So those are my surprise teams. And then I think you're going to see some blockbuster names be traded at the deadline. Don't be surprised if the Blue Jays do fall out of it if you see a Mike Burley get traded because he's pitching well. R.A. Dickey in Toronto had a horrible month. He had like a 5-run ERA for the month and still managed to win 3 of his 6 starts somehow in the month. Oh, wait, that's because Toronto was hot for 12 games straight. So that's the surprise.
Yeah, good point about the Angels. That was the point I was going to make, is that they are really, really hot right now. They're keeping the pressure on the Astros. The lead's down to, I think, it was 4 games coming into today. It'll be 3.5 after the Astros lost. The Angels play tonight against a Rangers team that was really, really hot when Beltre and Hamilton were out, and then they got Beltre and Hamilton back, and now they're lousy again. Their pitching's gone south. I think the Angels are going to be a second-half team, just like they were last year. They won't end up with the best record in the American League. That'll be the Royals, but they'll win the division. I think the Astros will slip to a wild card spot. Maybe play a team like the Twins, which would be a fun series. A couple teams that haven't made it in a while, or there could be a team out of the East. I think it'll be interesting to see what the Dodgers do. They've got the back end of their rotation is so weak. The front end is so strong, but without Ryu, the back end is super weak. And the Dodgers, it had the Giants breathing down their neck, but the Giants have trailed off. The Cardinals are going to be there. I think the Nationals are going to win that division. Probably get at least 1 wild card out of the Central there, maybe 2. So it'll be fun to watch. And the All-Star game's coming up. As we're finishing the show, they're announcing the starters and the lineup. So we'll have a little All-Star preview next week. But we'll wrap up the show for now. I definitely want to thank you guys for taking time out away from the soccer game and the busy holiday weekend. Julie and Kelvin, A+ performance as always, and we'll see you guys next time on Diamond Games.